The US credit rating has just been downgraded. What the heck does that mean? And how does that affect us? Does it even affect us? Should we be worried? What should we be doing? All that will be answered in this video in simple English and straight to the point. And everything is time stamped. So you can go ahead and skip what you already know and move on to what you don't know, especially what to expect or what you should be doing. Now, all I ask is if you learn anything from this video, give it a thumbs up because it did take time to put this video together.
All right, explain this to me like I'm a 2-year-old.
Moody is a major financial service company that determines the credit worthiness of borrowers. And by borrowers, this includes governments, financial institutions, corporation. Think of it like your credit bureau. TransUnion, Equifax was the other one. They take a look at how much you owe, your debts, and how you've been paying them, your history of paying them. And based on that, you are given a score, a FICO score. Same thing here. Moody determines, they do the risk analysis, they do the research, they take a look at the credit risk of each country, government, institution. And just like us with credit score, they give a credit rating to each government or financial institution, whoever it is they are analyzing. We, the United States, had the highest credit score, the equivalent of 850, we had AAA. That is the top notch, the highest you could possibly get. Well, up until a few days ago, that was decreased to not so top notch, not bad, but not so top notch, a score of AA1. I call it AA1. I don't know what anyone else is called, AA1. So let's say the equivalent of what, 825, 800. So it's not bad, but it's not number one. And if we are not number one, who the heck is number one? That's the most ignorant statement, but you know what I mean. All right, so why did they do that? Moody is very worried about the debt, the amount of debt we have. Right now, we have so much debt that is costing us a lot to pay back this debt or to service the debt, not even pay back, just to service, i.e. pay the interest on the debt, so much more than what we bring in, which is our GDP. Just like your regular credit report or your credit score, when you have so much debt, you are more risky. You're not as good as someone with less debt and a lot of income. Moody is very worried about Donald Trump's 2017 tax cut. It wasn't made permanent at the time. It will be expiring this year, but the Congress is looking at making that permanent. Moody is worried that with that being made permanent, that will add trillions of dollars to our debt, which is making a bad situation worse. They are also worried about how much money we have coming in to service the debt. So not only will our debt be increasing, we are also not bringing in or going to be able to bring in as much money to service that debt. So what does that mean? What does it mean that we have decreased, our credit rating has been decreased? It means we are now at a higher risk of defaulting on our debt, or we got that score because we're at a higher risk on defaulting on our debts. And I say that with a smile because it's not like we went from AAA to, Z, from 850 to 8 to 500. But nevertheless, it still means we are at a higher risk of not paying back what we owe. And that means it will cost us more to borrow money. Just like when you have a lower credit score, you have a higher interest rate. And so in this case, having the lower rating means it's going to cost us more to borrow, higher interest rate on loans, on investment. So mortgage rates, car loans, your credit card, you could see increased rates there. It also means possible higher inflation because now it's going to cost businesses more to borrow, which means your cost of doing business is higher. Cost of goods will probably be higher because they need to recoup the loss or they need to make profit. It also could lead to economic uncertainty. Heck, we're already in economic uncertainty. But when you look at the fact that the reason why our credit rating was downgraded has not been addressed, doesn't look like it will be addressed. It doesn't look like it's going to get better. It looks like it's only going to get worse even, right? It makes you realize, or it makes you hesitant to borrow to the US government. And by borrow, we all do. We borrow to the US government when we buy bonds, treasury bills, your retirement, mutual funds, pension funds, all that. They lend money to the government when they purchase bonds and T-bills and all that stuff, right? So we're less likely to give the government more money. That also could mean money is not being pumped into the economy. Now, how does that really affect you? It means chances are interest rate is not going anywhere. i.e., it's not getting decreased. Interest rate is probably going to stay where it is. Jerome Powell is probably not going to want to raise the interest rate, so I probably will not take it any higher. But I do not see the interest rate going down. There are some people saying, based on the analysis, there will be one rate cut. I strongly doubt that. And I think for us, this is one of the biggest places where it's going to affect us is interest rate is going to stay where it is. So if you were looking at buying a house, or if you bought a house with a hope of refinancing at some point, honey, plan your budget based on the current interest, because unless something crazy happens, which it puts you in a crazy state, should we be praying for something to happen so the interest rate goes down? But unless something happens, this is the rate you're working with. Whatever rate you got your mortgage on is what you're working with. I do not foresee refinancing happening this year. Well, let me not spoil my own blessing. You know what? It's up to God. All right. And then, if you have car loans, the rates on the car loans will remain where it's at. Your credit cards, those are not fixed. Oh, you're probably going to see an increase in that, or at least it stays where it's at. Nothing is going down in terms of interest rate. Another key area where this is going to affect us is taxes. Remember, I am not a professional. This is just my understanding. And so take this information as you may, but think about this. One of the major ways the government brings money in is through taxes: income tax, payroll tax, business tax, whatever tax. That's a major way the government brings money in. They need money to service this debt, to pay down this debt. Remember, the issue is not just that our debt keeps increasing, but that our GDP, the money we're bringing in, is not as high. So I'm not foreseeing tax cuts. However, there is a bill, Donald Trump's current bill going through Congress. His big bill is to eliminate taxes for certain areas, i.e., tips, Social Security. So if you do the math, the government is losing money, right? So then where is the government going to bring money in? I know there's certain cuts being made in several areas, but a lot more money needs to come in. I guess this is where tariffs come in, because tariffs will then give the government money, right? Because there's income coming in, but we pay for that. Whatever it costs the companies or the industry to make a product, we will pay for that. It shows up in the price of the product, regardless of what anyone says. And this isn't politics, this is just black and white. That's why Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, said he expects the tariffs to slow growth and increase inflation, because it's now going to cost us, you and I, a lot more for everything. But listen, this isn't the first time US credit rating has been downgraded. It's actually happened twice before in the last 10 years, in the last 14 years. Gotta get my years right. Okay, so Moody is one of three major financial service companies that determine our credit worthiness. The other two are Standard & Poor, S&P, and Fitch. Back in 2011, Standard & Poor decreased our rating from, once again, the top notch to not so top notch, but still great. And recently, just 2 years ago in 2023, Fitch did the same thing. Guess what? All of them have done the same, really based on the amount of debt we have and how much we keep adding on to the debt, and the fact that Congress keeps having a tough time doing what they need to do in balancing the debt and keeping us from adding on to it. So what happened after the credit rating? Unfortunately, nothing much. Well, fortunately, nothing much. Fortunately, in the sense that nothing major, it didn't lead to a crash. It didn't lead to us not paying our debt and all that. Temporal market decrease, just like it is now, a little decrease over a few hours, and that's it. Everything is still as it is. Congress can get their act together and work together to make sure we don't keep increasing that debt. So nothing happened. The good news is, like I said, it wasn't like we went from a reliable country to an unreliable country to borrow to. We, as in the US, we are still the safe haven economy in the world. Even with the pandemic, our economy was still the best growing economy. And compared to other countries, we were still the best in the world. I know it was an election year and things were said that were not true. Our economy was still the best. This is where people still want to invest, and this is where people still want to borrow. People still consider us a reliable investment. So we are still number one. However, we're going down the wrong path. All we can do is just manage our money as best as we can. Things cost more. Manage our money as best as we can. So this is probably not a good time to borrow. Anything that requires borrowing money, this is not a good time because the cost of borrowing is super high right now. Like I said, we are still a great economy. We are still a reliable economy. I still don't know, and this is probably a naive statement, but I still don't know any other economy or any other country that is as safe to borrow to or to invest in like we are, right? But it's good to know what is coming down for us, for you and I, in terms of our income, our own homes. And that is, this is not a good time to borrow money because the rates are high. It's expensive to borrow. This is a very high level overview of this whole credit downgrading situation. If you want more information on who we borrow from, how much we borrow, and all that, then let me know and I'll do a part two. But I hope this breaks down the recent news about our credit downgrade and what that means for you and what you should do. If not, let me know in the comment and I'll fix it. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.